Namo Namaha. Uh, Today is another good day for all of us that we are going to have a short course of 4 sessions, 2 hours each, and 4 consecutive Saturdays. The topic is psychology through ancient Indian literature by our well-known speaker, Dr. Malladi Srinivasa Sastry garu.
So, psychology through the modern day historical lens is dated back to 1500 BCE, as there was evidence found on ancient Egyptian manuscript known as Ebers Papyrus. However, it was not until the 11th century that Persian physician Avicenna made a connection between emotion and physical responses. So, what I'm trying to do is, I think we need to first have an introduction to understand when did modern psychology actually begin. And we know that although modern psychology actually took its shape only recently, there is mention, at least not so far away, 1500 BCE, and sporadically after that. But the problem is that we know very well that Ayurveda has been there for a very long time, and I'm sure there would have been mention of mind and mind related illnesses or psychological aspects in the texts. However, modern psychology in its historical account doesn't include any Indian version of it. So does it mean that there was no literature available, or is it just that there is a bias in how the history of modern psychology was understood? So I would believe that it is our responsibility to really look at whether there was any mention in ancient Indian literature of psychology. So while there have been efforts to find the historical timeline from a Western archaeological and historical perspective, there has been no such work to look at the available evidence, particularly from the ancient Indian literature. So here is an attempt to look at the connection that we can draw from the ancient Indian literature to learn lessons about psychology that are applicable in modern world. There were two influential people who have shaped modern psychology, or you can say they have triggered interest in psychology or psychiatry. And they were Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. Both have been very influential. And for instance, as a student of medicine, we have read about Sigmund Freud and his works, and same with Carl Jung, and thereafter Carl Rogers and Jean Piaget. We have studied their theories, especially as a psychiatrist for our exams and all that. And they have shaped how we practice psychology in the modern world. All right. Again, a brief look at branches of modern psychology. Psychology aims to understand the human mind, that is its business, and its unique traits. Psychology it's not only about treatments or clinical use. It is about various other aspects. For instance, organizational psychology. It can be a branch where you look at how an organization, a system works. It could be social psychology. How does a society function? Educational psychology. Nowadays, it's very popular, particularly children at school who have problems. Some of the schools, particularly international schools, have an educational psychologist there or a counselor. Or there could be career guidance and so on. Then you have forensic psychology. It's more to do with criminal offenses. And the criminal offenders, they are actually interviewed to understand their mind works, how they have influenced their crimes that they have committed, and so on. And you have health psychology, developmental psychology. Ultimately, this understanding helps us, the individuals. It helps couples, particularly, for instance, couple therapies, family therapies, society, and even policy makers. So there's a lot of scope for understanding psychology and the various theories that it brings along, so that we can make our different aspects of our lives better. Okay. Now, the introduction can be very extensive if we don't come to very relevant aspects. Our topic is psychology through ancient Indian literature. So we will only look at those concepts from modern psychology, which I'm going to talk about. And I think this is important as a basic foundation before I jump into the next topic, the first topic that we're going to look at today as part of the ancient Indian literature. But before that, there is a concept called as cognitive behavioral therapy. But even before that, how do we actually approach psychology and psychiatry? By the way, people may ask, what's the difference between psychology and psychiatry? Psychiatry is study of mental illnesses, and it deals with treatment of mental illnesses. Psychology is study of mind. So that's the difference. Second difference is psychiatrists come from a medical background. So we do MBBS, and then we further train ourselves, specialize in psychiatry. Psychologists come from bachelor's background, and that's the training aspect. Treatment-wise, psychiatrists prescribe medications, tablets, and can also do talking therapy, whereas psychologists do talking therapies. So these are the differences in case people want to understand the difference. So whether it is psychology or psychiatry, we understand that any aspect of our daily life, abnormality or normal behavior, is influenced by three things: biological, psychological, and social aspects. So what does biological mean? So biological basically refers to us being machines, a machine where the machine is actually driven by neurochemicals. So there are chemicals and there are electric impulses through the nerves. These run the show. And that is how it's a biological machine, you can say. Human is a biological machine. And if this is the understanding, then abnormalities are understood to be abnormalities of the chemicals and abnormalities of the nerve transmissions of the electric impulses. And treatment is naturally based on how do we rectify these things. Okay, so that's biological. So our mental and cognitive function occurs with chemical and neural messaging. And based on this model, we can understand how mental health conditions affect our mind and body. For example, anxiety symptoms. When we feel anxious, what happens? My heart is beating fast, I'm breathing heavily, I'm sweating and all that. So all these things can be very much stimulated by neurochemicals, which are, some names like adrenaline, noradrenaline. So this is how it gets manifested. So that's the biological concept component. So the next component is the psychological component. And how do we understand this? This is like how each individual develops his or her own unique personality, partly how we are born with, what we are born with, and what we imbibe as we grow up into adulthood. So that becomes the psychological component. And this can, on its own, affect the way a person leads their life and also behaves, normal or abnormal for that matter. Okay, so that's the psychological aspect. The third component is the social aspect. And the social aspect is where I would think that we get mixed up, or there is a huge overlap. The overlap of where do you draw a line for a normal social problem and a medical problem. So sometimes we say medicalizing normal social problems. Social problems, social could be what? It could be children going to school. That's a social gathering, it's a social interaction. Adults working at a place. Family unit is social. Neighborhood is social. And then relations, politics. All these are social. And any changes, any disturbances are likely to cause disturbance in emotional state or the way it affects my way of thinking, for instance. So it can have an effect on emotions as well as thoughts. So therefore, social is obviously a very huge factor too. Now, interestingly, there are certain things we need to understand how human relates to the society. So let's read through. So it's true that humans have to relate to society on a daily basis and have to find ways to live in it harmoniously. He or she also needs to learn to set rules for self-conduct. In Yama Niyama, for instance, in Ashtanga Yoga, and also follow the societal norms. So there is an expectation of the society on him or her to contribute meaningfully. So it's not a one-way traffic. Nowadays, it's about individualistic approach, isn't it? Freedom. Freedom or rights. Lot of talk about rights. But what about responsibility? If there is too much of right, let's say it's a balance. If it is too much of rights, very little responsibility, then it's all about individual. The society as a unit is not going to function. If it is all about responsibilities and no rights at all, it is almost like slavery. And the individual's aspirations are sacrificed. Kind of climates, responsibilities may have been huge, but very minimal rights. And that led to a lot of suffering as well, isn't it? And similarly, now when there are societies where it's all about rights and zero responsibilities, it becomes a dysfunctional family, it becomes a dysfunctional society. So it's all about a balance. So there's an expectation of the society on him or her to contribute meaningfully and to peacefully exist while still being able to exert his or her right for individual freedom to choose their way of life. Hence, multiple external factors play a significant role in our psychological development, current lifestyle, and perhaps shape the future too. And these include family, friends, society, school, and work. For example, a person may develop depression or anxiety due to disturbances in relationship, loss of job, or due to financial instability. So this is how a social problem can lead to emotional difficulty. Somebody losing a job suddenly, they may get quite depressed. Losing their loved one to, died in their family can cause a lot of grief, similar to depression, and so on. Similarly, a child may develop emotional behavioral disturbances if they are continuously abused, taunted, traumatized emotionally or physically, or even if it is a frequent occurrence, or sometimes very sporadic but very severe kind of incidents. Those can all affect a child's behavior or emotion. So it's important to understand the contribution of this towards one's own mental health so that appropriate treatment can be offered either in the form of medications, psychological interventions, or practical problem solving. All right. So I'll just pause here for a moment. If anybody has any questions to ask or any clarifications, I'll be happy to kind of pause for a couple of minutes before we proceed. By the way, are there any psychologists here today joining in? Are there any psychologists or a psychiatrist? Does anybody have any questions?
See, Srinivasa, you have mentioned only the problems. You mean there is no psychological analysis for a person who is happy or excited? Only illness only it is treated, analyzed, or it can be analyzed on the basis of excitements and happiness and anger and all those things also.
Can you be a little more precise in your question,
A
please?
human is subjected to Arishad Vargas,
Mm-hmm.
Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsariyas.
Mm-hmm.
So, are they linked with psychiatrism or psychology? Is it mind sciences and this psychology are same? Psychology is same?
Okay, so I'll try and understand where you are coming from before I can answer. So I think I have, in the introduction so far, I have given the modern world psychological model. I have not touched upon the Indian model yet, number one. There are several theories, and the theories have not been, I have not gone into any of the theories at all. So the only thing I can say is, okay, let's say you mentioned about Arishad Varga. Obviously, they have an impact. There's no doubt about it. So mental illness is not being discussed here yet in detail, or I'm just mentioning what are the various factors. So as you rightly said, Arishad Vargas, perhaps let us say, they may come under the bracket of psychological, and Yama and Niyama can come under the bracket of social. So ultimately, all these things will come in these three brackets. One component that we have not covered yet, which I will cover in a moment, will also absorb things like Arishad Varga or something, various other dharmic principles, and that I would say is spiritual component. So modern psychology, being secular, has not included spirituality as such, and spirituality cannot be seen as a problem to give rise to mental health problems. Whereas biological faults, psychological faults, social faults can lead to mental health problems. Whereas training oneself in spirituality helps them in coping with mental health problems. So therefore, I can say that the model biological, psychological, social is good enough when it comes to finding the reasons why somebody develops abnormality. But for treatment, it is better to include the spiritual component as well, is all I can say at this point of time. All right, so Padmini Rangarajan says, medical and psychiatric branch of social work was my specialization during my, okay, great, thank you. Okay.
I'd like to put forward one more point here. The Arishad Vargas, though the name I have put as a spiritual way, but the nature of those 6 elements in a human behavior is applicable to any religion.
Why? Okay. Again, I think we are definitely going
Any
in the
human
wrong.
being, any human
Yeah.
being, right? Any human being for that. It's not necessarily a particular philosophy of religion, it is applicable.
As I said, I don't think we need to bring a religion here at all at this point of
Yeah,
time.
correct. That's why I'm talking.
Yeah.
It's not, how it's called as spiritual. That's why I raised this point. I'm talking about the angle of humanity only. And as a human, a person has 6 qualities. This type of 6 qualities we have.
Yeah.
So those 6 qualities come under psychology only, right or no? That's what I want to ask.
Possibly, yes. This, as I said, I put it in disclaimer. This is all for further work.
Okay, thank you.
Arishad Varga as a name is not mentioned in modern psychology. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be explored. Okay, so let us understand that it is our responsibility to explore these things and do more research. If somebody wishes to do a research on Arishad Varga, first is to define the words, and then look at their applicability in the field of mind sciences. As simple as that. It is as simple as that. Work has to be done by the individual who has a keen interest in exploring it.
Thank you. Please proceed.
All right. So as I said just a little while ago, I've already explained that modern mind sciences, we look at the interaction. So the interaction of the biological, social, and psychological components lead to manifestation of mental health problems. It's not necessarily only one among the 3. We notice that it is an interaction of all those 3 that finally leads to abnormal presentations. But as I said, for a complete model in terms of understanding, especially when it comes to learning how to cope with mental health, mental illness, or mental upsets, doesn't have to be illness, upsets. Maybe spiritual awareness, spiritual understanding is going to be a useful strategy. And that is why I nowadays incorporate spirituality as one of the components. It's not just me, in fact, very pleasing to know that the Royal College of Psychiatrists that I belong to in the UK, they have for quite a time, almost like 2 decades now, I think, they understand the value of spirituality in mental well-being. So surely there is scope for it. And this is how spirituality, when it comes to understanding from an Indic perspective, So there is scope to incorporate the Indic knowledge systems to bring spiritual component into making holistic wellness an effective model. We will discuss it in main sections at a later time. So spirituality represents our core. How do we define spirituality is very important. Again, just as I said, we need to define Arishad Vargas. Spirituality also has to be defined. Unfortunately, spirituality is defined differently by various people, and it makes it very difficult. So we need to figure out from a dharmic perspective, how do we define spirituality? Let's say somebody, when I give this example often, people say, okay, this is a task for everyone. People say Sanatana Dharma is a way of life. And I say that it's an incomplete definition. Can people give me a better definition of Sanatana Dharma, or give me reasons why I say that it is an incomplete statement? So it's Sanatana Dharma is a way of life. What is the problem with that? Mind you, this is interactive, so therefore we will.
You want answer? You want no answer now itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is
As for me,
incomplete definition.
it is incomplete because it didn't define what is way of life. It didn't define at all. Actually, Sanatana Dharma is how you conduct yourself in the family, in the society, and in your own to your own self. All these three come there.
Okay.
How you conduct yourself within yourself, in the family unit, and with the society, and whether you are following the rules set or not. That is what we call as dharma. So just telling way of life doesn't convey anything.
Okay. So that's better. What you have said is better in how you relate to yourself, how you relate to family, and how you relate to society. But what is it that makes you relate in a certain way, not just you, but everybody else? Still, that definition is incomplete.
That is dharma.
Okay, then you have to define dharma.
No, actually, should I answer?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Actually, this is he answered it nicely. The previous one who answered that it is related to yourself and family, but yourself, that has to be elaborated slightly. Like one who sees every one, I mean, himself in everyone, and everyone within himself, as per Bhagavad Gita. That is the what you relate with self. Only not for leading the material life. That has to be understood. So that relate to self means ultimately leads to self-realization. That is the meaning of the elaboration of that should be there. Then it will be complete. It should reach up to, it should be able to reach up us up to Advaita state.
Okay, so now let's try and see.
Can I make a small?
I'll come to you. So, Gautamji, maybe what you can do is now you concise that information that you have shared and give me a definition of Sanatana Dharma.
Can I give that now, as he is told?
Let's see. Gautamji is going to do it.
No. What is the speaker earlier? The answer person, I think Prabhakar Raoji. He told this very nicely. It is okay, but here just one sentence elaboration that related to one self and the super self, actual self.
Sure.
Where
I agree. I accept what you said. But
maybe capital written with capital S.
We'll hear to. I think it was Prabhakar Garu who was.
Can I add to Gautam Mukherjee's statement in a more detailed way?
Yeah.
I understand what Gautam Mukherjee is leading to. Based on that only, I am making this statement. Sanatana Dharma means eternal Dharma, timeless, and means set of values, ethics, moral, duties, and philosophic principles that are essential for sustainability of nature, society, humanity, life after death, and principles of rebirth. Essentially, in Vedic terms, for sustenance of four elements, endeavors of humanity, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. This is a more elaborated definition I have given, but in some places, the Sanatana Dharma is also different in a short way also. That You have to search for and tell you. This is the definition we have written in our manual.
I understand. I think it is still a framework kind of, what should I say? It is very comprehensive, there's no doubt. But I like Gautamji's answer more, because if we don't have that very basic essence, anything can be defined as Sanatana Dharma. So the point here mentioned is, I see myself in everything and everything is seen in me. But what is it that is being seen in everything, and what is it that makes it constant? What is it that you are seeing in everything?
It is a piece which we see. See, what happens is ultimately, when I said earlier, because I said that, how you deal with yourself, how you deal with the society, how you deal with the family.
Mm-hmm.
So here, when I say deal with, what I want to say is no conflict within yourself. There is always conflict within you. Similarly, there is conflict in the family, there is conflict. You don't want to have any conflict anywhere. Then you are happy. Happiness comes out of that.
I can still be an atheist. Your definition can still be applicable to an atheist. There's nothing. I'm very keen to incorporate Gautamji's aspect, and I want to know from people. Gautamji's reference can still also be left simply as, I love everyone and everyone needs to love me, or that is how I see. But why does it have to be Sanatana Dharma? It could just be plain, simple, good relations and good human values.
Because he is not different from you. No one is different from you. You are just like them and they are like you. There is God residing in you. There is God in us.
No, one is tall, one is short, one is dark, one is fair.
No,
so it's like
common is...
Okay, V.S. Lakshmi Garu, please go ahead. V.S. Lakshmi.
Yeah, actually it is values, beliefs, customs, habits carried forward from centuries through mythologies, through epics, like
it's about
Mahabharata, Upanishads, Ramayana, etc. Where they've lived their situations and succeeded or got defeated. So value systems is what I mean, beliefs, customs.
So carrying on legacy.
Yeah, carrying on.
Carrying on legacy, and if that is the case, have they been time tested? Do they stand, time? Are they only confined to one particular time zone and geographical area?
No, they are universal values, values.
But what is universal about Mahabharata, Ramayana? What is universal about the various things that you are mentioning? I need to know whether there is really universality applicable.
Yes, they are family situations.
You may say so. You may say so. If I am not convinced if I'm not really following those things, I don't necessarily. For instance, somebody having to do certain kind of ritual of a Treta Yoga, is it applicable now? For instance, we don't know.
Not rituals. Arshad Vargas is what we are talking about.
No. I'm not talking about Arshad Vargas.
Related to
I asked about Sanatana Dharma as a definition. Ram Mohan, please go ahead.
Sir, we are victims or beneficiaries of our own mindset. Number one statement I make. Number two, can we shape our mind? We can shape our personality, which is different from mind. Are we controlling or managing our mind, or we are being led by our mind? This is number two. We have certain inborn qualities, sahajata mudu, which come through genes or whatever. Past B is what we acquire throughout our life from time to time. So this is the entire thing. Some people subscribe to certain things. other set of people do not subscribe or disobey the same set of things. So this much of complexity is there.
I understand, but what are you defining? Are you defining Sanatana Dharma here?
No, as you were telling some time back, what title is a different question, content matters. You can put any you take Sanatana, you take a good.
Right now, I'm asking. I gave the sentence. Sanatana Dharma is a way of life, and I've asked it to be challenged. And so far, we have had a few answers, and that's where we are right now. Okay.
I get it, sir. You're telling challenging Sanatana Dharma?
Yeah, as I said, okay. Just to kind of make it clear again, let me mute you, if you don't mind. There's some background noise. I said I gave an example. Actually, I was talking about spirituality, and I said spirituality has so many different definitions. People it gets very confusing. So I was giving an example that Sanatana Dharma is often quoted as a way of life. And I say I have a problem with that definition, and we were talking about it. And we had answers, for instance, about it's a way of life where it's about how you deal with yourself as an individual, your family, your society. And that's a good answer, but it is still not comprehensive. Then Gautamji has come up with saying, I see myself in everyone, and I see everyone in me. And I was simply asking, what is it that I see in everyone, and what is it that of everyone I see in me, was my question. And so far, I haven't had an answer for that, apart from in the chat box, Sumitra ji has written, seeing God in everyone. Now we'll come to a definition of some Sanatana Dharma as saying, Sanatana Dharma is a way of life where I see God in everyone, or Sanatana Dharma is a way of life where it tells me how to deal with myself, my family, and society and environment with the basic foundational understanding that I see myself in everyone and everything in me. Is that a better definition?
Sir, I would like to just add that there are different ways of life for different people. Whatever we look, that is number one.
Yes.
Number two, there is something like eternal elements are there like Panchabhutas, but we are not eternal. We are either temporary or non-temporary because we are endowed with a uncertain period of life. People die in mother's womb itself, and people also are living for more than 100 years.
I understand, Ramohanji. I know you're giving. See, I'm sure once again we are looking at a complex, elaborate definition, explanation of Sanatana Dharma instead of a definition of Sanatana Dharma. So the more we keep explaining it, we get lost. So we'll keep it simple. It is a definition that we are looking at. I think we will conclude here. Frankly speaking, I would like to use the word Atma. That is exactly what Gautamji was referring to. But for some reason, we are all shying away from using those words. Sumitra ji has used the word God. Now, how can it be Sanatana Dharma if there is no mention of God in it? If there is no mention of divinity in it? If there is no mention of Atma in it? If there is no mention of Brahman in it? These are watered down definitions. We need to be very precise. So concepts have to be crystal clear. Concepts have to be, as say in science or research, we use sensitivity and specificity, accuracy. These are the measures for any concept. So the concept has to be clear enough. We can't just go around beating around the bush or shying away from saying what has to be said. So definition has, please work, let us work on the definition. In fact, one of the tasks for any groups, any satsangs hereafter should be, what is the short answer of Sanatana Dharma? Next, what would be the elaborate explanation of Sanatana Dharma? This is a task I would like you all to work upon, and we can hear you next week. All right. An example led to a detailed discussion on Sanatana Dharma. We'll come back to where we were. So what I was trying to say that spirituality as such gets various definitions. And similarly, just like Sanatana Dharma, there is no spirituality without the word spirit in it. So my understanding of spirituality, therefore, is a person who understands and applies the concepts, experiences a deep connect and love with everything that permeates this cosmos. So there is universality in that. Okay. All right. So,
sir, may I add a point, sir? May I have a point?
But please keep it very short.
Very, very much short only, sir. Yeah. Two words in between. One is God and the other Atma. According to the analysis, I don't. Since it is a small group, I am sharing. These are created by the human being only. Our topmost weapon or tool that we have is only our mind. Atma is a word created, coined by us. So also God, nature, environment, I understand, but not God. God in the form of nature, I understand. Whether God or goddess in the form of nature, I understand. This I just wanted to say. This Atma, God, these are all created by human for his own satisfaction.
What is your scriptural reference to that?
No, sir. It's a common sense.
No, it's not common. Whose common sense is it?
Yeah, it's only by my own common sense.
Your own understanding, your own appreciation. So there is a way to appraise literature. So the dharmic literature consistently mentions the concept of Atma, whether it is Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and so on. So I would suggest you read those and before you negate the concept of Atma.
I'm not negating, sir. I am not negating. I am just neutral of it, sir. Neutral of it.
No. I think you negated it, but you may be backtracking. Basically, you said it is created by humans. I stand by it.
It is created by humans only. I stand by it.
Yeah, fair enough.
May I add a comment, please? May I add a comment?
Sorry, just a minute.
This will look like added artificially unless one does meditation. When one goes deep into the mind, then the concept becomes clear actually. So just reading scripture is not sufficient. One has to go inside by a process of meditation. It is a process. This process cannot be ignored. One cannot just live life without any psychiatric process like meditation and so on.
Okay, I think the point I'm mentioning is, if we say that humans have created the concept of Atma, the onus is on the person to show evidence for it. Okay, just as much as a person shows references from scriptures or literature for description of Atma, similarly, the onus is on the person who says that it is a human creation. That is how a discussion should take place. Okay.
I get, sir.
Okay, we'll move on.
One minute, sir. I am not debating number one. Number two, you, me, anybody can write anything. Where is the veracity or the proof for that? What is told? I stop here. Just I gave my point.
That's fine.
Having said all these things, I am a Sanatani. But there's no point in proclaiming. You live a better way of life. Harm not, hurt not, self and others. This is the single statement.
Thank you very much. We'll move on. Thank you. Anybody? Okay, let's move on. So let's recenter ourselves to the topic that we are discussing today. So this is a 4-session course on psychology through ancient Indian literature. And session 1, I have started with introduction. And in introduction, I always believe in defining my title. So there are 2 important words used, psychology and ancient Indian literature. So psychology is a modern word which refers to what I have described so far. And I have given the history of it, a brief history as seen through the Western lens. And I was asking whether it is high time that we do research on ancient Indian literature to look at psychological concepts for our own understanding, for better lives that we can all lead. And I've also looked at, or also showed you the interaction of biological, psychological, and social aspects in whether how we may present with normal or abnormal behavior, emotions, or thoughts. Again, in keeping relevant to the topic at hand, I'm only going to discuss this particular model called CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. Why the topic following this is very much going to be discussed in relation to CBT. So what is CBT? Cognitive behavioral therapy. Therapy being treatment. Cognition means thoughts. Behavior means behavior. So there's something called as a Beck triad. Aaron Beck was the gentleman who actually coined the word CBT, or he is the one who conceptualized it. So according to him, there are 3 things, and he calls it cognitive triad. And they are interactive, thoughts, feelings, and actions. All these the 3 things, they interact with each other. And that is how something manifests after that. And there is a situation that triggers it. We'll see examples. Okay. So a situation triggers the interaction between a person's thought, his feelings, and actions. An example, for instance, let us say nowadays there are 10th class exams going on, and there is a girl who is studying for her board exams, and she prepared very well for the exams. And on the day of the exam, she was traveling to the exam center, when on the way she started experiencing tremors. She was trembling in her legs. Her heart was really pumping very fast, and she was sweating for no reason. It looked like for no reason. She was shaking, shivering, heart was racing, and she was sweating, and she could not bear it. She couldn't understand what was happening. She couldn't bear it. So what she did was, she was a clever girl, obviously. She decided, there's something not right. And she just tried to calm herself down to figure out what was happening. And then she realized that she was having these thoughts: will I do well in the exam? And will I be able to get top marks? And what was the situation? The situation was as she was going to the exam center. So that's the situation which triggered these thoughts that made her feel quite anxious. And she could therefore make a connection. Now I understand why I'm actually feeling anxious, why my heart is racing, why I'm sweating. Now I understand, because these are foolish thoughts. These are not relevant thoughts. How did she know that? She then really realized, actually, I've studied well for the exam. I have been getting good marks so far in the pre-board exams. There is no reason for me to fear. So she could reason out, and she could calm herself down, and then she could go to the exam center. So this is an example just for us to understand. This is a good case, but there could be a lot of difficult situations as well, where a person escapes from that situation, runs away to avoid the anxiety. Again, for an understanding, situation was going to the exam hall. Thoughts were, I will fail, I won't get good marks, very unpleasant thoughts, therefore leading to anxiety, feeling like, shivering, sweating, palpitations. And if that person didn't analyze these things, they would run away from that situation, return back home or something. But in this situation, the girl managed to analyze what was happening, and then she could calm herself down, and she went went to her exam center. Okay. So this is an example. I can now allow y'all to figure out what is happening in this video and tell me, whatever comes to your mind, what would be the situation, what are the thoughts, what feelings is she likely to have, what action is she likely to undertake. Anybody wishes to volunteer? Does anybody wish to volunteer?
Anxiety is there in her face.
Yes, that's true.
I see her eyes. She is very, very, she is having anxious moments.
Yes.
And I think she is also expressing it through her mouth also, speaking something.
Okay.
Or shouting, howling. I don't know what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would be the situation? Just imagine you are a filmmaker.
Some situation which she is unable to face. Maybe a repetition, maybe for the first time she might have had some negative experience in that situation. And when she is facing that situation again, so it triggers same thoughts, and then this anxiety comes.
Okay, thanks for volunteering. Okay, anybody else?
A fearful feeling. She's afraid of something in front of her, and that is why this expression comes.
Okay, feelings. I think we were able to figure out what the feelings are. Okay, I want to know. We have three more things here: actions, thoughts, and situation. Imagine you are a filmmaker. Just be imaginative. Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
Our thought should be to run away from that place.
The lady is trying to say something. Yes.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the smoke behind her is appearing like a ghost. So probably then she's afraid and shouting out of fear.
So that's the situation. Yeah. So the situation is there are ghosts. Okay. That's triggering in something. And what is it triggering in? Imagine yourself in that situation. You are seeing ghosts or in the vicinity of ghosts. What happens? What are the thoughts you're likely to have?
That I should get away from these ghosts now.
The ghosts are going to kill me.
Yeah, I should get away.
I need to run away. I need to escape.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah. But the first thing is fear. Ghost is going to kill me. That is what makes her now start feeling afraid and anxious. And her heart is racing. She's sweating, trembling. And what would be the action?
To run away. To just get away from that place.
Yes, she will look for an exit. She'll look for an exit.
Initially, she's shouting for help.
Sure. That's true. That could be an action too. Shouting for help is an action. Running away, collapsing, as in sitting down, freezing, all those things could be action. Well, very well done. Thank you so much. So now you understand the model, right? Okay. Does anybody have questions? Can we go forward? Now we enter the real topic. So we understood how situation triggers thoughts, emotions, and action. Thankfully, we had two examples, and I think both examples, second example possibly made things much easier. Rasa Siddhanta of Natya Shastra would be one of the first topics we are going to cover. We'll initiate our discussion today, but majority of it will be done in the next session. Natya Shastra was written by Bharata Muni, and you can say one of the best kind of descriptions of how a play can be enacted and what all goes on in enacting a play. Of course, the history goes that it had been handed over from the Devatas. In fact, a lot of Devatas have also kind of played, enacted in plays and so on. We hear of all that. Bharata Muni himself, it's fantastic to see the scientific or the research-oriented kind of a mindset, because there are questions asked of Bharata Muni and Bharata Muni then replies. And Natya Shastra also gives references of earlier texts that have talked about Natya Shastra. Okay, so it's a good text from a comprehensiveness point of view as well. There are some concepts we need to understand through Rasa Siddhanta of Natya Shastra. So we have audience here, and there is a stage play going on. So on the stage, there is this lady doing some tapas, and there are some people around her in quite a bit of amusement, some amount of devotion as well. Okay, so they're all enacting, they're all acting, they're playing on the stage. And all the audience are actually enjoying, they're immersed, and they could be experiencing a range of rasas. Rasa is a mood. And Natya Shastra recognizes 8 forms of rasas. And among them are Hasya Rasa, Shringara, Bhibatsa, Bhayanaka, Raudra, and so on. Just like that, there are 8 rasas. So those are the moods a person develops. Let us say there is a very comical moment going on. There is a hasya rasa that is developed in the audience. There is wonderment here, something like thunder and very kind of serious kind of a thing. There could be a bibhatsa or a raudra, anger, something a hero is facing very difficult situation. Villains are torturing a hero, and we feel for the hero and we are very angry and upset, and so on. Of course, there is a romantic scene going on the stage. There is Shringara Rasa developed in the audience. This is how the rasa develops. But how does it develop? There are 3 components. There is a vibhava, which is the situation. We have anubhava, which is the action. And we have vyabhichari bhava, which is the psychological state. We can say these are thoughts or emotions here. Okay. Now, what does it resemble? This resembles the cognitive behavioral model we have seen earlier, where the situation was triggering the cognitive triad of interaction between thought, emotion, action. Similarly here, for the rasa to be developed, here it's obviously different, slightly different. I'll explain how. Rasa Siddhanta says that we all have dormant moods in us. Dormant. They will only come to life when these three interact with each other. And when these three interact with each other, this dormant mood called Sthayi Bhava develops into full-fledged rasa, and then you can see it, you're experiencing it. Okay? So the formula is Vibhava plus Anubhava plus Vyabhichari Bhava gives rise to rasa. Vibhava Anubhava Vyabhichari Bhava Sanyogat Rasa Nishpattihi is the formula. In other words, situation, actions, emotions, thoughts, they're all coming together. Now, the emotion here in Rasa Siddhanta is the latent or the dormant one, unlike in CBT model. But we can see the similarities. And that is where we need to understand the application of Natya Shastra. Now, interestingly, Natya Shastra was not written as a manual for psychological therapies, right? It was written as a manual for having stage plays, how to enact on a stage so that the audience enjoy, they immerse themselves and enjoy it. The commentators of Natya Shastra have come up with three sources or three mediums, or the, I would say not the sources, but the substratum, yes. Three substratum where actually this rasa develops. So one commentator says rasa actually develops in the audience when they are actually seeing everything played on the stage. Another commentator says, no. Rasa actually develops in the actor. The one who is acting is the one who actually develops that, and therefore is able to kind of almost feel like he is the Rama. And he believes as long as he's on the stage, he thinks he is Rama. And another commentator complicated but says that no, rasa actually is developed in the original character Rama itself and not in audience or the actor. We will not worry about this aspect, but we will look at where the audience and the actor are coming into picture. So in this situation, if it is the actor who is developing the fully formed rasa, the emotion, so that situation, let us give ourselves an example. An example is Shakuntala and Dushyanta. Let us say they are seeing each other for the first time. Okay, the first time, the first glance at each other. The situation is, from Shakuntala's point of view, she is seeing a man. So that's the situation. And that is a vibhava. And the vyabhichari bhava is the thought and the emotion, the thought that is going through, the psychological state that is going through her. And on the stage, naturally, it is the actor who has to display that. Okay? And that action is abhinaya. Of course, it has to be displayed. And it is also displayed as an action, anubhava. And there are various ways she is going to display the action, which is through like lowering her glance, or maybe tying knot of her sari, whatever, actions that she can display for the audience to understand. But the point is that the interplay of all these things are going to lead to the emotional state that is going to be developed either in the actor or the audience. In this case, it is the actor who develops the emotional rasa. So, seeing Dushyanta, she is developing the full Shrungara rasa with the situation being there, with the thoughts that she is having, and the actions. All these are leading to that fully formed rasa. On the other hand, if it is the audience, it is the same thing, but it develops in the audience. Okay. And now let's compare these two, cognitive behavioral therapy as well as the Rasa Siddhanta. Rasa Siddhanta, the situation in English, in green is the situation of CBT, whereas the Vyabhichari Bhava, which is the thoughts in CBT, and then action Anubhava is the actions of CBT. And the interesting thing is that the latent emotion can be said to be the feelings of CBT, leading to finally fully developed emotion. All right. So this is the comparison that we need to first understand before we can apply Rasa Siddhanta at any level further on for a better understanding. My job, if I am successful through this session or the next session in particular, is really looking at, is this only as good as a theory, or does it have any benefit in our daily life? If there is no benefit in daily life, it's pointless, basically, at the end of the day. So that is what we want to look at in the next session. I'll just give you this little bit of information before we conclude for today. Please understand that Rasa Siddhanta was not designed or conceptualized keeping in mind a patient in my clinic. It is not a real life situation. Rasa Siddhanta is not talking about a real life scenario. It is talking about a recreation of a play material on the stage. So therefore, it is artificial. But what we are interested in is how does the concept become beneficial for us to apply in our daily life. We will look at it in the next session. I'll stop here if I may.
Yeah, I have can I talk for 10 seconds?
Yeah,
if you don't mind.
And at this point of time, if anybody has questions, any doubts, please raise your hand. So we will be the next one to get the opportunity. Okay.
Okay. I'll see from what you said. See, if we face a situation where we develop fear and anxiety, thoughts are coming. Thereafter, the emotion, fearful fear and anxiety emotions are coming. So to face the situation, is it enough if we change our thoughts? Can we come out of that situation and face that situation? Do you mean that?
Okay. So that is exactly what we try to do in cognitive behavioral therapy. So there are two components to cognitive behavioral therapy. One is addressing what we call as cognitive distortions or abnormal thought patterns. And we work on them and we help the clients to challenge those automatic thoughts or distortions and put them into practice. So you're right. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to also know if people were able to follow what I have gone through today. Any difficulties, please do let me know. Any feedback is also valuable.
We could follow, sir. There is absolutely no problem. The concept of psychology into human mind and behavior is what we have learned.
Yeah.
We are learning, rather. We are trying to
Yes.
understand that and how these situations, different situations, play a role in the mind.
Yeah.
And what one has to do in that condition in order to get the bad thoughts out and bring in the good thoughts. I think this is my lesson for today.
All right, that's good. I'm glad that there was a lesson to learn. Other lesson, important lesson is, first is to develop awareness that this is actually happening. How many of you felt that you could develop that awareness, particularly through that video example? A lot of us perhaps are not aware of what is happening in our body. I'm talking literally about our body, because when we are anxious, am I able to say, or not even anxious, somebody may actually have a churning sensation in the stomach and they don't want to do anything for that day. They may not actually even be thinking of what is happening. They may think that there's something wrong with the stomach and they are not really kind of addressing the issue. So the first thing is developing that awareness.
Yeah, I understand, because in Gita also Arjuna says the same thing. Hands are shaking, my hair is raising, I'm sweating, and all that he says. So an action in the body is very important to be aware of. What's happening to you? It could be a good experience, it could be a bad experience, but then something should happen in the body.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
to
sir,
make
agreed.
it easier, sir, may I interfere? This is
Yes.
Sumitra.
Yeah.
To make it much more easier for us to understand the concepts, whatever you have explained so far with the video and everything, we see many of our relatives crying in a theater, watching the film, right? That's where it triggers them.
Yes.
And the people who realize that, it's only a scene that's being displayed on the celluloid, they don't cry.
Yeah.
But when they're deeply involved into the situation and try to identify themselves with the character being portrayed, they will involve themselves into the character, and that triggers them. As you said, that's the dormant Sthayi Bhava with the Vibhava of the emotions being expressed by the heroine or the hero. That triggers them. So if the people who are watching having fleeting feelings like, okay, after going home, what should I cook? Did I forget to turn off the stove and all? If they are engaged otherwise, for them it may not trigger. But if they are deeply involved into the character, watching the heroine, then automatically tears will roll down. Especially films like Pativrata, Anjali Devi enacts, so I see ladies coming out with the wet sarees coming out of the theater. So
okay, interesting. That's great. Thank you. I'm glad that you could connect it quite well. Yes, fantastic.
Yeah, and another thing, sir. So we can compare this to the dormant Sthayi Bhava, whatever is there. One something triggers us. Just like you were explaining, the emotions, the thoughts, something, situation, and everything. So it's like we have chana in the house, or the moong dal, pesalu, the green moong.
Yeah.
So as long as we put them in dabba, they are very safe. But the moment you pour down into a vessel and add a little water and cover it with a proper cloth and tightly, give it the proper warmth, then it will start germinating. So what happened to the germination till the time it is in the kirana kottu? And what happened to that pesalu when they are in my house in the dabba? Nothing has happened. That means you need an external force or an external situation for it to trigger it out and, starts germinating. Similarly, the situations, whatever that you have portrayed, be it a drama or the other one, the lady.
Real life also. Real
life also. So unless you see something, unless something triggers, for a simple example, when we were younger, My mother used to cry by, if a postman says that Amma telegram, without even reading the telegram, she used to cry because, the telegram is meant to hear something that is bad. So I said, Amma, first you read the telegram, what it is to return in that. No, obviously it will be father serious to start immediately only. So,
Yes.
something that triggers human mind just like anything, people get connected there. Sorry, I think I took this time.
No, absolutely wonderful. I'm so pleased to hear how you were able to kind of pick up some of the essence of today's conversation that we have had. Wonderful, thanks.
She's expert in
Yeah, Vivek
Nathashastra.
Garg.
She's
Vivek Garg,
expert in
please go ahead.
Nathashastra. She is expert in Nathashastra. Sumitra Velur.
Vivek Garg, please go ahead. Can you unmute yourself? I don't see you unmuting yourself. Okay, anybody else in the meantime?
ఇంకో విషయం కూడా కెన్ ఐ టాక్
Yes,
ఐ
please.
డిడ్ రైజ్ మై హ్యాండ్.
Yeah.
ఇప్పుడు ఇంకోటి కూడా ఉంది ఇక్కడ. సారీ, స్పీక్ ఇన్ ఇంగ్లీష్. సో వెన్ వి ఫేస్ ద సేమ్ సిచ్యువేషన్ అగైన్ అండ్ అగైన్, what happens, that fear will go. Most probably you get used to it. Maybe it happens with doctors, initially when they start their practice, when somebody is dying in their presence, in spite of their whatever tablets and other things which they do, if the patient is collapsing, they also will be emotionally affected. But after some time, after gaining experience of 10-20 years, maybe they get used to it.
Okay.
I'm taking not only doctors, that's what we find in real life also. You get used to it.
Okay, so that
emotion will come down.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, what you mentioned. So in cognitive behavioral therapy, we call it repetitive exposure.
Yeah.
But if it is done in a therapeutic fashion, then the problem gets resolved or gets better. But if it is the same trigger which is quite distressing, what you are getting used to is not therapeutic, but it is dysfunctional. Sorry, can you mute yourself? Whoever is, there's a lot of background noise, please. So then it is called learned helplessness. For instance, if somebody is being beaten every day or every month from their childhood onwards to adulthood, after a while they know that, okay, now it's my turn to get some beating. So it's like mentally preparing, okay, I can't escape, so I might as well face the beating. But that is called as learned helplessness. That is not therapeutic. It is counterproductive. That's the way it is. So it can work either way, but we use the repetitive exposure as a strategy in CBT to help individuals to get over a problem, and that is definitely well taken. Thank you. Yes.
What is that CBT?
Cognitive behavioral therapy.
See, can I just add to this?
Yeah, who is it?
It is Nageshwara.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, most of us, we have a lot of New Year resolutions. To maintain those resolutions for 10 days, 15 days, maybe at the most 1 month. And more than 99.99% of us people, we just forget it. Is it because of the repetition, or it is because of any other thing from your perspective, doctor?
No, I think it's very different. I think if I go into the details of it, it's going to take a long time.
You can say in a sentence.
I would simply say that one, you haven't actually internalized it or owned that resolution. That is exactly the first problem. And it's let us use the word Trikarana Shuddhi there. That's the best example. There is no Trikarana Shuddhi in that resolution. It has been said, but the learning hasn't happened as to how you bring in thought, word, and action into unison. Unless we train ourselves to do that, which requires you to be true to yourself as well. Satya. So this is how I would like to approach it. And there could be various other reasons why you are not sticking to it, because it doesn't mean to you anything anymore. Because we have so many competing interests in our daily lives. Something else comes new and this gets replaced or put aside. So that's the
I'll slightly differ with that.
That's okay. We will move on. Thank you.
Yeah. You see, it's not that some other thoughts are coming and interfering. It's something known as, the lethargy sort of thing. It creeps into the person's mind. And not just because he's getting other thoughts, it's just because the lethargy is stopping him into the action, stopping from doing that action.
Yeah.
So my submission or the request here is, it will be useful for us with your experience and the knowledge of what you have acquired. If you can throw some light, how to stick on to the actions, to the actions which you have decided through your thoughts.
Okay, we can do a topic on Trikarana Shuddhi at some other point. There is no scope for that in these 4 sessions. Obviously, as you understand, the title is somewhat different. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Vivek ji.
Yes, sir. So I just want to ask you, that is some kind of a shock or a kind of surprise sorrow can lead to the cancer. Means a behavioral pattern
leads to what? Cancer.
Yeah, it's a kind of the sorrow or the psychological depression can cause
cancer. I think we should stick to questions related to what is happening in the sessions. Yours is obviously again not related to what is happening right now. I don't have an answer. We need to really look at research evidence for that. I don't have an automatic answer for that. So your question is, what is the impact of shock or stress on cancer? I don't have an immediate answer.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Please keep the questions relevant to what is happening in the discussion. Okay, I guess, if anybody else has any other observations, any feedback of how we can make things any different for the next session, please do so. The other thing is, kindly make note of the announcement made earlier that at the end of these 4 sessions, you will be given a participant certificate. Please give your names and full name and mobile number in the chat box if you wish to receive that. Okay, I think we'll draw this to a close.
Sir, namaste, sir. Sorry to correct you. When you were telling about rasas, you were mentioning that there are 8 rasas. I am sorry to correct you that I think there are 9 rasas now, sir. 9. Tomorrow.
He was quoting Bharata. Bharata mentioned only Ashtarasas. Bharata has added
Well, I'm glad that you spotted that, but it is not me who is wrong. It's not about Natya Shastra mentions 8 rasas.
Okay.
Shantarasa, the 9th one, is not mentioned as such, but people say, commentators say that it is inferred.
Okay.
Inherent.
Okay,
thank you for whoever has come in support of me.
Thank you, sir. Dhanyavada.
So, madam, to answer you, just like Vibgya colors rise out of nothing and merges into nothing, no color, that means. Similarly, Santarasa is like that. When we are quiet, just like sir was explaining about different situations, how we think and, we develop feelings and emotions and sentiments like that. So it's like that. So Santarasa is no rasa.
Okay.
When you have no rasa, it is a rasa. It is Santarasa.
Okay. Actually, we are preparing for Kovida. Tomorrow we have Kovida exam. But still, I thought today I will come and have your session for relaxation because the topic was quite interesting. I didn't want to leave your lecture. I want to exam ki the relaxation la untadi konse break తీసుకున్నట్టు ఉంటది అని చెప్పి
So hope it was paisa vasool.
Definitely, sir. Thank
Okay.
you. Dhanyawada.
Thank you all for your active participation. I'll end the session here for now. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Srinivasa Sastry garu. It is a very interesting, and it has led to a lot of questions and discussions, very useful to all of us. And it is a very good first day session, and I hope that next 4 sessions our participation will be even better. So now we will end the session with Prarthana and then Janaganamana. Please stay back, don't leave. So may I request H.P. Rao garu to decide to chant Shanti Mantra, please.
Astu. Om. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kachchit dukkha bhavet. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Satyam Vada Dharman Chara Sarve Janaah Sukhino Bhavantu. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Idannama. Namaskar.
Dhanyavadamalandi. Now let me request all of you to please stand up and recite Janaganamana along with me. Thank you. जनगणमन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल वंग विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्छल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Jai Hind, Jai Hind, Jai Shri Ram, Jai Shri Ram.